From the nation's capital, the Conservative Caucus presents Conservative Roundtable, an in-depth look at today's most important issues.
Welcome to Conservative Roundtable. I'm Howard Phillips, chairman of the Conservative Caucus, which sponsors these broadcasts. We have with us today a repeat guest. Walt Olson was with us 6 years ago on Conservative Roundtable, and there are some important new things to discuss. Every time I look at Walt Olson's resume, I can't help but be impressed. Let me just tell you a little bit about Walter J. Olson. He's a management consultant and certified public accountant, and he's the treasurer of several federal and state political action committees. In the interest of full disclosure, let me just say that he's been a brilliant advisor to Phillips 2000, the campaign committee of my Y2K campaign for the presidency as the Constitution Party nominee. He has more than 30 years of experience and has held management positions in industry and the federal government. He provides management, accounting, and other consulting services to a wide range of nonprofit, government, business, and political organizations. His functional areas of expertise include federal and state campaign finance regulations, nonprofit tax, export control, and other trade regulations. That's a broad panoply of credential and experience. Walt Olson served on the U.S. House of Representatives Select Committee on U.S. National Security and Military Commercial Concerns with the People's Republic of China, which at that time was chaired by Chris Cox, who is now the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, and at some point we're going to talk about China with Mr. Olson. During the Reagan administration, Mr. Olson, he looks too young to have served 20 years ago, but he did. He was Deputy Assistant Secretary for Export Administration within the International Trade Administration of the United States Department of Commerce. He also served on a commission known as the Grace Commission with a friend of mine, Peter Grace, an extraordinary man who was a very conservative Democrat. Walt Olson holds an MBA in finance from Columbia University and a BS in electrical engineering and a BA in economics from Brown University. Walt Olson has written articles on various public policy issues, which have appeared in a number of publications, including the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Times, and the Journal of Commerce. Well, Walt, that's an incredible background. You're well qualified for the things you do. I want to walk our audience through a little bit of history. American politics changed in a big way when in 1974, the late President Gerald Ford, not then deceased, signed into law the federal election law amendments of 1974. What did those amendments do?
Well, those amendments modified the Federal Election Campaign Act of 1971, but the two significant things there, it imposed limits on contributions and spending limits that political candidates could receive, and established the Federal Election Commission as well. So those were two of the main things.
And of course, the consequence of that was extraordinary. By placing limits on contributions, it enhanced the power of the political parties, the major political parties, because they operate year-round raising money, and they're able to collect substantial sums, and they're able to enforce party loyalty by saying, if you want to get some of our money, you've got to toe the line to what our leaders in Congress, and if they control the presidency, the White House want. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, you have in Congress people who on the one hand are dependent on the leadership of their parties, or on the other hand are either independently wealthy or have sufficiently large mailing lists to enable them to collect the kind of money that permits them to be competitive in a race for the House and Senate. This is one of the reasons why the Senate and the House are not the institutions they once were, and why there are so few great men and or women in Congress because to be great, you've got to assert a measure of independence. But if you assert a measure of independence, unless you're independently wealthy, you never make it to Congress. And you lose the support of the party leadership. What did the 71 election law do?
Well, the 71 law consolidated. There was a number of provisions. I think it was the first one was passed by Congress regarding elections in 1907, and that consolidated a number of provisions regarding federal elections.
Corporate contributions were prohibited.
Yes.
Do you think
Yes.
that's a good thing?
Probably. Corporations still can do certain things. Some states permit corporate contributions. The Commonwealth of Virginia does. They can contribute as much as they like to candidates.
Probably the most liberal, in the best sense of the word, election laws in the United States of America are those in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Mm-hmm. And that's why people from all over the country establish political action committees in Virginia. And to help sustain the work I do for the Constitution Party nationally, we solicit funds from all over the country to support the work of the Constitution Party of Virginia. Now, I have to say I haven't been very successful at that, and whatever money the party has had is money I've loaned to it. I've loaned the Constitution Party of Virginia about $30,000, even though one person other than I could write a check for $30,000 or $30 million. And frankly, I think the laws in Virginia are good laws.
The federal government, though, you cannot use corporate money to fund federal candidates.
But in Virginia, you can sustain state and local candidates
yes.
with corporate money.
Yes. And this varies by state. Some states permit corporate contributions, some do not. And as far as state law, it's all over the place. You have to look at the specific states. The limits are different. The reporting is different.
In some states, there are really onerous restrictions
yes.
on even what a person can spend in his own behalf, let alone what others can spend to assist, or what a corporation can do to assist, or what a PAC can do to assist.
Yes. Well, most recently, last year, there was Vermont passed some very strict campaign contribution limits. Individuals were limited to contributing $400 over a 2-year period to candidates for statewide office and $200 for candidates for state legislature. And this was overturned last year, as you probably recall, in the Supreme Court, the Randall v. Sorrell case, and they turned down those. They felt those were too restrictive.
Now, let me ask you a question. Is there a limit on money which can be spent to secure ballot access for a political party?
Not that I'm aware of, but the ballot access rules, as you well know, vary by state. And some states are quite easy to get on the ballot. In other states, such as New York, it is extremely difficult. The two parties have established mechanisms that it almost precludes people that are not Republicans or Democrats from getting on the ballots. In other states, it's quite easy.
Well, the two most difficult states in the country are Oklahoma and North Carolina. Without an expenditure in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, ballot access will not be secured. But I go back to the question, can corporate dollars be spent to obtain ballot access?
I think this would depend upon state law. The FEC
There's no
doesn't,
federal prohibition on it?
No, there's no, the FEC has never ruled on it. Any type of operating expenditure like that would be permitted from hard dollars. But you're talking about corporate money, and I would believe that would be dependent upon state law, and you have to look state by state.
And there's no ceiling on private money that can be spent for ballot access?
Again, would be state law.
But there's no federal prohibition.
No, no.
Well, you're in sync. I've discussed this with members of the Federal Election Commission, and they say, frankly, we've never answered that question, and we don't know how we would rule if it came to us. So I always lived dangerously and abided by the rule that it's easier to get forgiveness than permission. And had I not followed that procedure, we would have missed many ballot lines. Now, our party, the Constitution Party, has been able to get on as many as 43 ballots, but it would have cost an extra $2 or $3 million to get on all 50 states. And we just didn't have the money to do that, so we said, well, we're not going to try Oklahoma. We're not going to try North Carolina. In 1996, we made a major effort to get Pat Buchanan to be our nominee. And Pat said, well, for me to seriously consider it, you've got to have ballot access in Texas. So we went after Texas, but it cost more than $300,000 because Ross Perot was paying more than $5 a name for signatures. We had started out paying 75 cents or $1, but in order to compete with Ross Perot, while we didn't go up to $5, we had to pay $2 or $3 a name. It cost us about $300,000. We did get on the ballot in Texas, but as the history books will show, Pat Buchanan nonetheless decided not to seek or accept our nomination. Now, we have about a minute left before the break. What has been the pattern for selecting members of the Federal Election Commission, and how much leeway does the Federal Election Commission have in interpreting the laws on the books?
Well, as far as the members, there's 6 members on the Federal Election Commission. They're appointed by the President and with the advice and consent of the Senate, and they serve 6-year staggered terms. They must be no more than 3 from one party. But what that has worked out to be is that 3 are Republicans and 3 are Democrats.
They have yet to appoint a Constitution Party member of the FEC.
That is correct. That is correct. Now, in terms of their interpretation of the law, the commissioners, as is the rest of the FEC, essentially they take their direction from a large amount from members in Congress.
Hold that thought. We're taking a break. Stay with us. We'll be back with election law expert Walt Olson right after these messages. There are many conservative organizations, but the Conservative Caucus is unique in that our standard for evaluating public policy is the Constitution of the United States. Our goal is to advocate policies which conform to what the Constitution stipulates and to oppose those which undermine the Constitution. It's clear that the federal government has only those powers which are provided in the Constitution, which were initially delegated by the states to the federal government or which were subsequently added by amendment. If we adhered to that principle, your taxes would be lower and your liberties would be more secure.
The Conservative Caucus, www.conservativeusa.org or 703-938-9626.
Here's how you can become a citizen lobbyist and influence how your representatives vote. Write a letter to your congressmen and senators. Speak out on a call-in talk radio program. Write a letter to the editor of your local newspaper and call the Conservative Caucus for more information at 703-938-9626.
There is a better way to have fun with history. Visit americaslibrary.gov. Log on, play around, learn something.
come on. You're going to tell me that buying one imported towel is going to cost someone their job?
Ever tried shopping for clothes with a 4-year-old? I can't be looking for where the stuff is made.
Since 1980, nearly 500,000 Americans who make apparel and home fashions have lost their jobs, even though the quality of our products is second to none, which makes you wonder if it's foreign competition that's hurting us.
So the shirt's imported. Who's it going to hurt?
Or if it's us that's hurting us. Buy American, and Americans work.
Welcome back. I'm Howard Phillips, Chairman of the Conservative Caucus, and our distinguished guest is the Honorable Walter Olson. I say honorable because he has held positions of significance in the federal government as well as elsewhere. Before the break, Walt, we were talking about the degree to which members of the Federal Election Commission basically take their clues from members of Congress. Is that true?
Well, I think the commissioners are sensitive to the concerns from members of the House and Senate. They essentially approve their budget and so forth. So I would say yes, over the years, where the requirement for additional controls, additional regulations have largely come from the Hill.
But of course, people in Congress disagree on what they would have the commission do.
There is disagreement.
Yeah, I mean, recently John McCain blasted the commission for not faithfully adhering to the provisions of the McCain-Feingold law. And constitutional conservatives were thoroughly opposed to the McCain-Feingold law. Why don't you talk a little bit about what the McCain-Feingold law did? When was it passed?
The McCain-Feingold bill was passed in 2002.
2002.
It was signed by the president.
Let me stop you there. Everyone knew the bill was unconstitutional. First Amendment says Congress will make no law respecting the freedom of speech, right?
Correct.
And this is what the McCain-Feingold law is all about, restricting the freedom of speech. And people said, it'll never pass Congress, it's unconstitutional. Bush said, I will veto it if it comes to my desk. And the miserable dog signed it. And he signed it saying, well, the Supreme Court will take care of it. The Supreme Court took a pass on it, and we got stuck with this unconstitutional law, which I believe ought to be disobeyed. Mm-hmm. Tell me about it.
Well, in particular, on the White House press statement, President Bush, when he signed it, one of the key lines was, certain provisions present serious constitutional issues. And then paraphrasing, however, I'm going to sign it anyway, and I'll let the courts sort it out. And so he signed it. It was immediately, there was a number of parties, Mitch McConnell, the National Rifle Association.
Mitch did a great job fighting.
Congressman Ron Paul. There was a number of that immediately filed a complaint with the district court. That went on for, went to a 3-judge panel, which was provided for in the law, and then went to the Supreme Court. The final decision was in 2003, and it largely upheld McCain-Feingold, or BICRA, or the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act of
BCRA.
2002.
Yep.
They had a number of provisions. I think most people are familiar with the intention to limit soft money contributions to political parties and soft money expenditures by political parties.
What is soft money?
Soft money is not hard money. Hard money is subject to the
Thank you.
to the expenditure limitation, contribution limitations of the FEC. So, for example, someone can give X amount. Currently, it's $2,100 to a federal candidate.
Not 2,200?
2,100, unless they change it. They will change it this year.
I think because of inflation, it's up to 2,200.
Well, the last go-around, they take a look at it every 2 years, and I haven't seen a press release on that, but I suspect they will increase that. But soft money can come over the
That's $2,100 for the primary and for the general, each.
Yes.
So if it's $2,100, you can really give $4,200.
Yes.
Okay.
They raised that. That was one of the things with BICRA. It raised the contribution levels from 1,000 to 2,000 and has indexed some of the contributions, not all, some, to inflation every 2 years. It's interesting that they didn't increase the contributions limits that people can give to PACs, for example, but they did increase it for the money to candidates. I think that's primarily what they want to do, is have people just make contributions to political candidates and to eliminate other political groups, maybe single interest, perhaps whether you're pro-choice or pro-life, those groups from participating in the political process. To get back to BICRA, the other key provision had to do with electioneering communication, which prevents or prohibits corporations and labor unions from making electioneering communications, and those are specifically defined. It must have a clearly defined federal candidate for office that is running. It must be done within 60 days of a general election or 30 days of a primary.
So in other words, free speech is cut off within 2 months of a general election. Is that a fair statement?
Correct. Well, in terms of corporations that wish to energize people to call their senators and congressmen regarding the vote on a particular piece of legislation, whether it be stem cell research or what have you, to vote for or against it. Yes, this is cut off unless you pay for it with federally regulated dollars and you set up a separate...
So in other words, a nonpartisan private public policy action organization is in trouble if it uses contributions that it has received to try to influence public policy decisions within 2 months of an election.
Yes. Well, this is most typically in the recent Wisconsin Right to Life case, which we can talk about if you'd like, but that's something recently in the news.
Well, we only have 15 seconds before the break, so let's save that for our final segment. Please stay with us. I'm going to ask Walt Olson how the McCain-Feingold bill can send you to prison if you violate its provisions. Stay with us. You'll want to hear this. One of the top leaders in the Communist Chinese military declared that the United States is the main enemy of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the People's Republic of China, which is longhand for what we call China. We have been building up our enemy, if that is a reciprocal term, by giving them most favored nation status and membership in the World Trade Organization. Last year alone, that gave them an $84 billion advantage in money which is fungible. And as a result of the extra money they have, they're not only taking jobs from the United States, they're increasing their military budget by 17% a year. It's time to stop sending technology and dollars to Communist China.
The Conservative Caucus, www.conservativeusa.org or 703-938-9626.
Here's how you can become a citizen lobbyist and influence how your representatives vote. Write a letter to your congressmen and senators. Speak out on a call-in talk radio program. Write a letter to the editor of your local newspaper and call the Conservative Caucus for more information at 703-938-9626.
I am the port in the storm.
I am the line in the sand.
States Coast Guard.
Heed your country's call. Join the Coast Guard or Coast Guard Reserve.
Welcome back. I'm Howard Phillips. This program has been sponsored by the Conservative Caucus, a nonprofit public policy action organization. If you're interested in the kinds of issues we discuss on Conservative Roundtable, I hope you'll check out our website, www.conservativeusa.org, or you can fax us at 703-281-4108, or you can drop us a note, TCC, 450 Maple Avenue East, Vienna, Virginia, 22180. Our guest has been Walt Olson. Walt, we don't have a lot of time, but in the time remaining, tell us how the election law amendments of 74 and the McCain-Feingold bill have criminalized political participation.
Well, they have, one of the key provisions of BECRA was to increase the maximum civil penalties that can be charged against someone, but also there's criminal statutes if there's a knowing and willing violation.
Knowing and willing or willful violation.
Willful, yeah.
What's the maximum penalty? And we've just got about 20 seconds.
Well, I'm not sure, but I'm not a lawyer.
You can spend time in prison. You can pay enormous fines.
Yes, you can.
Simply for exercising your First Amendment free speech rights. Ladies and gentlemen, and others in the viewing audience who are neither, thank you for watching the program, and I hope you'll join us for the next edition of Conservative Roundtable. And Walt Olson, thank you very much for the knowledge and expertise you have shared with us.
Thank you very much.
Hope to see you again soon. See you later.